Hello, my name is Elle and welcome to another video by Vegan FTA. Today we'll be covering stories that can be found over at veganfta.com. Consider signing up to our newsletter if you haven't already to stay in the loop over there. And while you're here, make sure you're subscribed and click that bell icon so that you get notified of our videos. Study finds different cognitive dissonances in carnists and vegans. A recent study has evaluated the psychological strategies that consumers of fish, dairy, and eggs use to reduce the moral conflict associated with the consumption of these products, and concluded that those who consume a broad range of animal products use more strategies to reduce the associated moral conflict than those who don't. The study, published in November 2023 in the journal Appetite, was titled "Feeling Morally Troubled About Meat, Dairy, Egg, and Fish Consumption: Dissonance Reduction Strategies Among Different Dietary Groups." The authors from the University of Bradford and Keele University in the UK looked at how omnivores, flexitarians, pescatarians, vegetarians, and vegans employ strategies to avoid moral conflict regarding the consumption of meat, dairy, eggs, and fish. The authors created a questionnaire distributed through social media, and 720 adults responded. Flexitarians were the least represented with 63 respondents, while vegans were the most represented with 203 respondents. 5 strategies were identified. 1. Denying that animals have significant mental capacities and that they can feel pain and emotions and suffer from their exploitation. 2. Justifying the consumption of animal products with beliefs such as meat is necessary for good health, that it's natural to eat it, or that we have always done so and therefore it's normal to continue. 3. Disassociating animal products from the animal, such as seeing a steak instead of a dead animal. 4. Avoiding any information that might increase the moral conflict, such as science on the sentience of exploited animals or investigations into the suffering they endure on farms. 5. Dichotomizing animals between edible and inedible, so that the former is considered less important than the latter. In this way, people can love certain animals and even defend their well-being, while turning a blind eye to the fate of others. The study found that for meat consumption, all groups except vegans tended to use denial, while omnivores used justification far more than all other groups. Also, all groups used avoidance in relatively equal proportions, and all groups except vegans used dichotomization in higher proportions. For egg and dairy consumption, all groups who eat eggs and dairy use denial and justification. Pescatarians and vegetarians also used dissociation more than vegans, while vegans, vegetarians, and pescatarians used avoidance. For fish consumption, omnivores used denial, and omnivores and pescatarians used justification to make sense of their diets. Really interesting how these studies are coming out. We explored a similar one in a previous video. I don't know about you, but before I was vegan, I was certainly using these tactics to make it more comfortable for myself. Perhaps you can relate to that. Our next story is cow herd trying to escape run loose in Yorkshire village. On 5th of July 2024, a herd of 45 cows escaped from their confinement in a field and stampeded through Ripon, a town in North Yorkshire, UK, before their bid for freedom was dashed and they were recaptured. Several residents recorded the cows running through streets and people's gardens. In a video, a teenager is seen racing away from the unruly herd as the cows charged along the road. According to the Metro, the teenager had popped down the road after hearing the cows had broken free, to then be startled by the sight of them pounding towards him at high speed. Eyewitnesses suspect that the cows managed to push through the gate in their field at the end of the street. Residents said it took several hours and the assistance of North Yorkshire Police to round up all the cows and crush their hope for freedom. One resident said, "They made a mess. There is quite a lot of poo. It's pretty gross. Quite a lot of people have said it's the funniest thing they've seen." Some newspapers compared the event with the running of the bulls in Pamplona, Navarra, which took place the same week. There are indeed similarities. We are talking about the same species of animal, despite what bullfighting supporters claim. Bullfighting bulls are of the same species as bulls bred for meat or milk. Both herds were captive before running in the streets, and all the animals were killed after being rounded up, although in Pamplona a few minutes later, and in Ripon a few months or years later. The difference is, though, that in Pamplona they will be tortured first for 20 minutes or so with all sorts of weapons. People force them to run, and many spectators decide to run with them and make the entire ordeal a macabre spectacle. They do indeed have their similarities, and to compare it to something where the animal's being tortured, it's like we recognise it, we see that they're being mistreated, we see that we have laid them an unfair hand, but we don't do anything about it. And once they have freedom, it's taken away from them. And our next story is another example of animal abuse. Protests against Calgary Stampede continue amid more animal deaths. On the 6th of July 2024, animal rights activists from the Canadian province of Alberta protested the annual rodeo competitions at the Calgary Stampede, holding signs and banners on Macleod Trail just across from Stampede Park. Heather Anderson, founder of the animal rights group Daisy Foundation, said to CTV News, "We don't want to see the Calgary Stampede stopped. We want to see the entertainment and the rest of the fair and everything, but we want to see the animal cruelty stopped." On the next Sunday, the group returned to the same spot with more protests, as they did on the 13th and 14th of July for the final weekend of Stampede. On 5th of July, a horse who ran in chuck wagon races was killed after being injured during a race due to wagon interference during the 6th heat on Friday. Another horse was killed after being injured during the chuck wagon races the following day. And on the 8th of July, a steer injured in a steer wrestling event was killed, becoming the third animal to die during the 2024 Calgary Stampede. Stampede officials called the incident highly unusual and unfortunate. Last year, a horse was killed after he was injured during the chuck wagon races. It was the second death of a horse at the chuck since the Stampede changed the format to 3-team heats to make them safer. 6 horses died at the 2019 Stampede, which in 2021 prompted a change of the nightly race format to have 3 rather than 4 chuck wagons run during each heat. Aside from the risk of injury and death to the animals involved in the rodeo, the Calgary Stampede is a major cause of stress for the animals used in events like calf roping, steer wrestling, and chuck wagon races. It's 2024, we have so many ways to entertain people, yet we decide to include animals forcibly in this endeavour. It's time to develop past this. If you would like to see an end to this, then let us know down below by commenting. That is all we have for you today. We hope you found the stories of intrigue. As always, let us know what you thought of them down below. Don't forget to subscribe. And above all else, don't forget to go vegan for the animals, because they are who it means everything to.